Hello and welcome to the video. Today we're gonna rank every Pokemon of the top 100 and a few more actually as well for the Open Ultra League, and we're gonna start actually kinda right into it. Of course this video's kinda a little bit longer, but we're gonna try to be very short with it today. I think it's going to be a little bit easier than for the Great League. So, moving on here, we're going to have the first Pokemon being a Snow, kinda decent anti-meta Pokemon, but not too crazy in the meta right now. And yeah, I'm not going to talk a little bit, I'm going to always talk a little bit about Pokemon, but not too crazy. Actually, Snow, I might actually put into A-, to be fair, because I feel like it's a little bit tricky to play currently. We're going to have the Annihilate S tier for me, not quite yet S+, but it's very close to it. We're going to have the Auroras. Auroras is a little bit of a better ice type in my opinion, just a little bit of a better bulk. Very cool Pokemon, just not really that great in the current meta, which is mainly Fire type Pokemon plus Water type Pokemon, but very cool. Belly Bolt, B tier, having no coverage, just so bad, sadly, you get completely walled by any ground type. We're going to have Blastoise, sadly also B tier, you don't really see it too often. It is not really the greatest Pokemon, they're just way better starter Pokemon, Wild really hurts it. We're going to have the next B tier of Bombardier. This Pokemon is more like an anti-meta thing, they're just a better Pokemon with the same typing, which you of course know. And we're going to have another B tier, which is going to be Guzzlord. You're going to see in this video way more Pokemon a little bit further down, because the top meta is a little bit more concentrated than it is for the Open Great League, which is kind of good for the Open Great League, to be fair. Not so good for this one. We're going to have Charizard next. Kind of fell off, of course, with the Incinerate buff and Talonflame just being better, so it's going to be, still playable. I'm going to put it into A tier. I think it's still a very solid Pokemon. Clefable, for me, also A tier. Very good, bulky, Fairy-type Pokemon. Fast getting to the moves. Very good for this Pokemon. Cobalion is also something that I kind of would put still into A+. It is a little bit more tricky to play, that just other fighting types are a little bit more preferred. Actually, I kind of have to put into A. You barely really see this Pokemon, it's just better to run something like an Annihilate nowadays. Not really the best one of them all. We have Kofax, which I feel like has a lot of potential. I'm still going to put it into A- because you barely really see it right now, but I feel like in the current meta, this thing actually has quite a lot of potential, so maybe try it out if you have one build. We're going to have Cresselia. Still for me S, but it's slowly going a little bit down. I could argue of S-, I'm still gonna put it into the normal S tier just because of the coverage, and still it's a very solid, very bulky Pokemon. Not S+ for me at all anymore. It was back in the day, but not really nowadays. We're going to have the Deoxys, kind of fell off as well. I have to say, kind of fell off. They're just better fighting types, but it's definitely better than the Cobalion, so for me A+ is kind of fine there. Same goes for the recently buffed Pokemon, which a lot of people actually really like a lot. Dragalge, very, very solid Pokemon. I was thinking about showcasing it, but no, there are 20 showcases for this Pokemon. I think it's kind of enough for it. I still would need to build, and I'm kind of poor on starters, I have to say. Next Pokemon, kind of closer to S tier, to the normal S tier, but for me it's still kind of S-, going to be Dragonite. Very good Pokemon. Basically, by the way, again, every Pokemon off this tier list is actually a playable Pokemon. It's not that I'm having completely nonsense here anyway. But yeah, definitely Dragonite, very, very solid Pokemon. It deserves S tier, for me a little bit lower, but closer to the S than to the A tier in my opinion. To the normal S tier than to A+ in my opinion. So we're gonna move on here now. Drapion. You would argue to put it really high, but I feel like the current meta is so bad for this Pokemon that I kind of actually want to put it into normal A tier. It is just not a meta for it. There are so many Pokemon that are so good against this thing that I feel like it is kind of losing its potential. I haven't tried it yet, but I kind of maybe want to try it out recently again. I actually played it when I had the friendly battles to the beginning of the Ultra League, and I found it was pretty bad. So still, it is a playable Pokemon, A tier is A tier, but I don't think it's close to S tier anymore. It was very, very good, one of the best Pokemon through recent years, but nowadays I feel like it kind of fell off. Speaking of the dub wall, it is still playable. I still would put it into A-, still definitely better than B tier or anything like this, but yeah, definitely not as great anymore as well. Also with Pokemon like Annihilate is just scaring this thing completely, so that's kind of the thing. Empoleon, great Pokemon for the Dragonite, great core in general. I have to put it into A+, not S tier for sure, it's not even close in my opinion, but A+ kind of very solid for this one. Escavalier, again, kind of more of a victim of the recent kind of meta shifts or whatever. Just other Pokemon just have better stats than this thing, so I'm gonna put it into A-, still very solid Pokemon to run. Watch out for this thing in the Premier Cup. I think it's going to be better there because Pokemon like Giratina, for example, is something that you don't really want to face with this thing. We're going to have Feraligatr. For me, first S+. Like, this thing is insane. Like, this thing literally has best coverage for this one. I hesitated putting this into S+ for the Open Great League, for Ultra League. I don't really want to hesitate. Like, this thing is for me for sure S tier plus. But again, this is my opinion for this tier list. If you have a different one, that is totally fine. Florges, I have to put into C tier. Like, I don't really see the reason of it. Like, it's just a worse Clefable, to be fair. So, like, there's no reason for this one. Gallade, I'm sad about this, but Gallade, I kind of put either A- or B. I'm just going to put A- because it's a recently buffed Pokemon, but it was actually just not good and you barely see it at all. Gengar, for me, B tier still has some potential, but like it's not really great. Like, it's closer than any of the other B tier Pokemon to the A- tier in my opinion, but again, it's just very squishy, but it's a lot of fun to play, so I kind of like it quite a bit. We're going to have next up Giratina, or the normal one, the altered variant. For me, S+. For me, just literally one of the strongest still. Like, it is just so good, especially in the current meta with a lot of Fire-type Pokemon. This thing is just really, really solid, and like you have two different movesets as well with like Dragon Breath and Shadow Claw, which both completely have different matchups. For me, still S+, for sure, like one of the best Pokemon to invest in. Next one, we're going to have its brother, which is going to be somewhere in like A- as well. Like, it's just like, it's kind of the same thing with like a lot of Pokemon, like Gliscor in the Great League compared to Gligar. Like, you have Gligar, which is just bulkier, a little bit better, and just generally is just the preferred version to use. Gliscor is still usable, but it is just not going to be as good as the other one. The same here, basically, you can still use Giratina Origin. It's just not going to be as great as the Giratina Altered form for the Ultra League, and so, for me, clearly A-. S- for me, Gliscor. Gliscor is still very good in the current meta, especially with all the fighting type Pokemon. Very solid Pokemon to use. Also, you can decide if you want to have Night Slash or the Aerial Ace, both are fine. We want to have next up the Go-Goat. I'm just gonna put B tier. I have no real, like, I don't know how good this Pokemon is. I don't have this Pokemon. I don't know, like, only the people that go to like those in-person events, which have been in like 3 different cities so far. I think Barcelona was the only European one. Yeah, have those Pokemon. Like, I don't know, I don't know how good it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be that great, so let's move on. Golisopod, for me, A+, still very good Pokemon to use. Very, very spammy, very solid Pokemon. Definitely something that you can use right now. Goodra, I'm gonna put Goodra into A tier just because I like it, but like it's most likely not the greatest Dragon type Pokemon. They're just way better ones to use right now. Decent coverage, but very lame typing. Just pure Dragon is a little bit lame to play, so that's mainly it. Greedent, for me, strict S tier. Like, this thing is still like so spammy and so annoying. I just don't like to play against it. And yeah, we can move on. Greninja, for me, A tier. We're going to have Guslord, which is for me A+. Guslord, very solid. Actually, I'm gonna put it S-. Great matchups against like Giratina as well. You can play very decent against, but like has a lot of matchups where you can just completely hardware opponents. So very cool Pokemon still. Same goes kind of for Great League. It's very similar to the Great League ranking, I would say, actually. Of course, Giratina is not in there, like at least not the altered variant, which is good. We're going to have the Gyarados next. I'm gonna put like low A tier after the buff, but like it's not really great. Hippowdon, I'm just gonna go B tier. I don't like, I've tried for a few games, but like I just didn't really like it, not for this league. I'm gonna put actually the Hitmontop into A-. I like this one quite a lot in the Ultra League because of the ice type coverage. We have Jellicent, for me, S- Pokemon, very good Pokemon to run, very bulky Pokemon, for sure something worth building. Como, I liked quite a bit when I played it. I'm just gonna put it a little bit higher than the Goodra just because I just liked it a little bit more, and I feel like the coverage of it is also a little bit better in the current meta. Kyurem, spicy Pokemon, A-, very decent with Glaciate, but like it's the same hero, it's not as great as it actually is. We're gonna have another A+ for me, is going to be the Lantern. Like, if you have the extra candy, for sure worth it to build this thing. Licky, I feel like it's just not as great. I'm gonna put it into A-. I think it has some potential, but like it's not really that cool. Also, it's kind of funny how we built like this pyramid theme line here, which is kind of funny. Next one, for me, straight S tier is Mandibuzz in the current meta. It's just really, really good. Like, resisting fast move of Feraligatr, and usually also against the Giratina, you're very good. Against the fighting types, you're very good. Against the Cresselia, you're very good. Basically, nearly everything that I put into the S tier, Mandibuzz cannot beat, and so it has to be S tier as well. So for sure, a very solid Pokemon to run right now. We have Meganium. for me, somewhere in the low A minus tier as well, more B tier. It's very difficult to run like normal grass type Pokemon in the current meta. A lot of dragon type Pokemon. It is just very tricky to run grass types. Mewtwo, this is actually the armored Mewtwo, which I'm talking about now, not the normal Mewtwo. I know that people are gonna be like, what is he doing in the comment section because I just skipped the video. This is an armored Mewtwo, but like you don't have the sprite for this. I'm gonna put A tier. Actually has some potential because of the confusion damage and the great coverage. Very sad that this Pokemon hasn't been available for like years. Would be really cool if it comes back because I would like to showcase it again, but like again, most people don't actually have this Pokemon, which is kind of sad for them. Nidoqueen, I don't know, like honestly A minus maybe. Like this thing is just like so sluggish and so bad in the meta because like water type Pokemon are everywhere. Ghost type Pokemon are quite common, like you don't want to have this with a Nidoqueen. Battled against it recently, kinda easily destroyed it, like not really great Pokemon. Ninetales still usable, but again not as great nowadays either. We're going to have Obstagoon, which I think actually has a lot of potential. I'm gonna put it into the A tier. Definitely has a lot of potential though for sure. We're going to have the Pelipper. I'm gonna put Pelipper also into the A tier. I think it has some potential as well, but again, it's like a little bit tricky to play and like a little bit tricky to get. Pidgeot has to be S tier, but I'm gonna put it into the S minus tier. Like, it's a really good sim hero. It basically beats everything other than like Registeel in the sims, but yeah, it's still not really, like, it's still very, very good. Like, don't get me wrong, it's definitely deserves S tier, but it's like a little bit tricky sometimes to play. Because like opponents can swap out and then your debuff doesn't really matter. Politoed, actually very cool in the Ultra League, has great bulk, has great stats. For this one, I'm gonna put A tier. Poliwrath is S tier for me for sure. S tier is definitely fine for this one. We have Raikou. I'm just gonna put it also into C tier. Like, I don't know why this got into the top 100, but apparently it did. We have Registeel. I'm also gonna put it C tier. Like, B and C are kinda similar, to be fair as well. Like, you don't really distinguish too much between them. Regirock I kinda have to put into A tier. It is cool on, not A plus, but normal A tier. It is cool on paper especially, but I don't think the current meta is really fitting for it as well. But like, it is still a solid Pokemon, way better than Registeel. We're going to have Registeel for sure, an S tier Pokemon. I just don't really like playing it, but it's very good. Like, it is very good still, even in a fighting type meta. I just don't really like it because of, I don't know, like Talonflame, which I'm gonna put into S minus for this one. I don't know, like for me, like every time when you build a team around Registeel, you usually run like double fighting in the back. And this is like going to be always kind of tricky against Talonflame, and I just don't really like it, so I barely really use it, even though I have a rank 1. But yeah, definitely still S tier, like there's no doubt about it. Runerigas, I wish this Pokemon would be better, I say it every time. I'm gonna put A minus. I think it has some potential. Hardest ball to Registeel, but again, it's not really the greatest. Actually, Salazzle, a lot of people liked recently, so I'm gonna put it to the A tier. I heard a lot of good stuff about it. I still haven't built mine because I kinda would like some better IVs than what I got so far. I have the XL candy and everything, but I need some better IVs. Sandslash for me, still actually S tier. I thought about it a little bit, but I don't know, like, I played against it as well a lot of times. Like, so many dragon types currently around. This thing is great for this. Against Mandibuzz, it's great. It's just very neutral against a lot of Pokemon. Like Empoleon, for example, you can still go for the drill run. Like, this thing is definitely still, for me, a little bit better in the Ultra League than in the Great League, but in both leagues, it's actually really, really decent in both of those leagues. Maybe A minus, like S minus is actually a little bit better than the A tier, the S tier for it. Of course, I can't talk anymore. But yeah, I feel like definitely S tier somewhere there is deservingly for the Sandslash. We're going to have Scrafty. I don't know, Scrafty not really that great recently. I could see it having a little bit more potential, but they're just better fighting type Pokemon, like, not gonna lie. They're just better fighting type Pokemon. It's gonna put it to the Obstagoon. Superior, again, it's tricky. I played recently as well. Like, usually it's just not really having great matchups for this Pokemon. I'm just gonna put it into the A minus. A plus for me is the Skarmory. You can't argue even putting it higher. I played recently in a team. Very good Pokemon. A little bit tricky to get for a lot of people, but I had this build already like ages ago, and now it's really, really usable, so that's great. We're going to have the Skeledirge for me, an S- Pokemon. Kind of very decent anti-meta Pokemon for sure. Played recently as well. Literally was the best Pokemon of my team there as well. Like, very good Pokemon to use. Skuntank, kind of same treatment than the Drapion. Was really good recent metas, don't get me wrong, but like this meta, especially with like something like the Annihilate being so common, I feel like poison types are just very tricky to play currently. It's not a poison type meta at all, and this is like kind of like the difficult thing in general. Kind of not as poison typey as kind of this Sneasler. Sneasler is Shadow variant. I feel like actually has more potential than people actually see. Because you have very fast and hard-hitting damage, and you have a Shadow Claw, which is going to be great against something like Annihilate. So I feel like this could be a really great closer in the current meta. Have to see. I feel like AT is kind of deserving for it. But yeah, we're going to have next up Staraptor. For me, A-. It's just a little bit too squishy. It's okay in the meta. It's not the greatest in the meta. Has some potential. Tried it out recently. It was just always like a little bit too short in something. Like it was either too squishy or that just doesn't do enough damage. Just barely doesn't do enough damage. So don't know. Don't really think it's the greatest, but it's definitely fun to play. Steelix actually way underrated just because on BP Pro calculations, still Breaking Swipe is very solid on this thing. Very good Pokemon. Normal Stunfisk are going to put into the B tier, while the Galarian one going to be A tier. Just a worse variant of Steelix in my opinion. Swampert is still not S+, but A+. Still very solid Pokemon to run. Maybe actually like somewhere S-, you could even argue, but I feel like the other ones are just a little bit bulky and a little bit better. Tapu Fini, I rarely really see it, but I still kind of want to put it into A+. Still think it's a good Pokemon to run in the current meta as well. The Tentacruel for me is also an A+ Pokemon. Has a lot of potential also with Blizzard to hit something like a Giratina. Very annoying Pokemon to deal with. Very solid there. I feel like, again, Poison types a little bit tricky right now. Toxic Rogue, they're just better Fighting type Pokemon to run. So I'm going to put into the A tier. Trevenant, A+, most likely the best Grass type Pokemon to run right now, which is very tricky in general. We're going to have Umbreon. It's just a worse variant of the Mandibuzz. I'm going to put into the normal A tier. Venusaur has some potential, but again, Grass type is very tricky and Poison type is very tricky, so it's going to be normal A tier for me. Virizion kind of still deserves the S- tier in my opinion, just barely. Like it gets closer more to A tier. Like a lot of Pokemon kind of beat it nowadays, but I feel like it's still very good in the current meta, as it's going to be one of the best answers to Feraligatr. Walrein, somewhere A-, it's not really that great. We're going to have the Weezing next, which I'm going to put into A+. Has a lot of potential, especially like very neutral in a lot of matchups, so I like this one quite a lot. We're going to have the Zapdos, very cool anti-meta Pokemon, A tier. And the final one is going to be the final S+, which is a Pokemon that barely anyone has, which is going to be the Zygarde Complete. And this kind of completes as well our tier list for the Open Ultra League. What do you think? What would you change? Let me know in the comment section. I would really like to see it, and I see you then. Bye bye.